Hi folks, this is Giulio speaking. I will be in charge of talking about clarity in instructions, and this is one of the biggest hurdles that many teachers need to overcome in order to execute the lesson successfully and get the message you want to get across to the students. So I will be orally narrating the next few slides about clarity of instructions. So first of all, you want to anticipate questions. For example, in our previous virtual classroom class, uh, the instruction for activity 3 required the use of mentors. At this point in time, we're not assigned our mentors yet, so this causes a bit of confusion, at least it did for me. So as a teacher, I would have already anticipated this confusion and write clearly in bold letters in the PowerPoint, as well as announce verbally that you can find a mentor by asking a fellow teacher at your school to evaluate you. So also, step number 2, plan enough time in your lesson to deliver instructions thoroughly and check for students' understanding. Don't deliver the instruction in a hurry when class is about to end. When giving instructions, it's very important to get your students' attention and make sure they are listening and making eye contact with you when you are about to give the most essential instructions about what to do in your lesson plan. A few routines that we've learned in Teach Now to get the students' attention are routines like 1, 2, eyes on me, and the students would say 1, 2, 3, eyes on you. For example, that's an attention-grabbing routine to get students' attention. Step number 4 is to be prepared and deliver verbal instructions with clarity, but also have a written explanation in clear, concise, and simple English on the whiteboard or PowerPoint for everyone to see. This visual cue will catch students who are not paying attention or have challenges following verbal instructions. So here you see two different examples of instruction. One is spontaneous, as you see in the first one, and the other is concise, right to the point. And the question is, which one is better, or which one is more clear? I would say it really depends on the student age group. For younger students, the more spontaneous instruction would work better as it gets their attention and guides them into the next activity. For adults or ESL learners, however, the shorter and more concise instruction could work better when the students are paying attention and listening, and the task is very straightforward, routine task that they've done already. For example, you might just give a short, concise instruction because they've done it before many times. So that's what I would recommend. Points 6, 7, and 8 talk about modeling and demonstrating tasks for the students to see. Since most students are visual learners, I think it's very important to model the tasks the way you want them to be done. Modeling requires you to show them with your body, gesture, facial expressions, and just exactly how they would go about completing the task you want them to do. Also, when you are assigning certain parts of the textbook for them to do, be sure to turn the textbook around and let them see which part you're referring to, and also give them a visual representation of where you want them to focus their attention on and completing which section of the textbook. So I think that's also very important. As a teacher, after you've given the instructions, sometimes it helps to walk around and just repeat the instruction with different wording to make sure that students actually get it. Because sometimes you need repetition, and especially for ESL learners, sometimes you have to just repeat the same instructions again for them to fully grasp the meaning. This is especially true for ESL learners. And also for longer sentences or tasks that require many steps, break it down into smaller chunks. It also helps, as I mentioned in point number 10. And also point number 11 requires pair work and stopping every once in a while to let the students confirm the task with a partner. And so that also helps eliminate a lot of repetition from the teachers when they could look at their peers and confirm it with their peers. And last but not least, it is always important to check for understanding using question prompts at the end of your lesson, using questions like, can anyone tell me what you're going to do next for homework? And things that ask for students to reply back and really just engage the students. Questions like, is it unclear? What questions do you have? Who has a question about that are also very effective, or even more effective than any questions like many teachers tend to ask at the end of their instructions, because those questions are more specific and students feel more compelled to ask question if any instructions are unclear. So in conclusion, those are the 12 steps and points I wanted to make about clarifying instructions. And I just want to mention that these are actually real time savers, even though they seem like a lot of repetition and repeating of the same thing. But actually, if you look at the long term, this actually eliminates a lot of the confusion and misunderstanding that would take even more time to undo. You would see that it pays off to have clear instructions and to take more time giving instructions. So that's it. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
We now move on to technical problems experienced in the virtual classroom. Navigating the virtual classroom can be challenging the first time round, so be sure to give yourself and your students ample time to familiarize yourselves with the program. The chat box is a great tool, but it can sometimes get clogged if too many people use it at once. As a teacher, you should set up a system for who uses the chat box and when. I recommend changing text colors so that it's easier to identify who is talking. Some of the most common virtual classroom problems deal with the camera and microphone. Should either fail, restart your virtual classroom session or use the chat box to keep up with what's going on. If you, as a teacher, notice a student drop off by accident, ask another student to check on them and keep them up to date about what's happening. Sometimes initiating another program that uses a camera or microphone, like Skype, can fix the problem. The hardest problem to fix is a total virtual classroom shutdown, where neither you, the teacher, nor your students can access it. If this happens, contact the web host and technical specialist right away, and let them know what's going on. In the meantime, contact your students through other means, like social media or email, to let them know what's going on. If the problem persists and no ready solution is available, plan a new date for the meeting. Hopefully, by that time, the virtual classroom will be up and running. When working with problems of any sort in the virtual classroom, always be patient and persevere. There are multiple solutions to any problem, so trying a few internet searches might provide the necessary solution right away. Sometimes, simply refreshing the page or switching to a different web browser can fix the problem immediately. If the problem persists, notify the web host and keep your students up to date with what's going on. The virtual classroom is a wonderful program, so please don't let any problem stop you from utilizing it to its full potential.
The virtual class can often present with an unstructured communication situation, as there can be delayed communication or overlapping of speakers. Online communication often lacks in nonverbal cues such as voice tonality, facial expressions, and eye contact. For those who feel most connected to one another by these body language factors, the online study environment is personal. Inability to receive prompt feedback from instructor or peers due to time differences can also be an issue in virtual classes. Establish clear rules regarding communication early on in the course. Use a hand raise or previously decided signal to take turns when sharing. Encourage students to ask their classmates to clarify any points that are unclear and to allow for differing of opinions. Strictly prohibit rude comments that can either instigate an argument or escalate a discussion into a non-productive exchange. Use an informal writing style but model correct grammar and spelling. Set up parameters for responding to emails early on in the course. Between 24 hours to 48 hours is reasonable, yet encourage discussion forum participation to problem solve. Warn your students in advance about the potentials for miscommunication. Ask that they use caution when interpreting their classmates' posts, and that they give their classmates the benefit of the doubt. Due to the impersonal quality of the setting, some students may hesitate to participate in discussion in the virtual classroom or in discussion forums. Establish clear guidelines for participation in conference areas. Call on specific students who may be shy or reluctant to participate in order to have a fruitful discussion. Give appropriate weight in the grading scheme for participation in discussion forums in order to motivate students. Emphasize that what happens in the classroom is private and that all students must maintain confidentiality.